Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 42 of the Memorial Memo KSR's Kentucky Women's Basketball Podcast. Today's a very, I feel like they're all going to start getting special as we go on because the season's here. But today's a fun one because this is just where I give my predictions for the upcoming season, right? This is just where I sit there and I'm like, all right, what are we going to do this season? Kentucky women's, of course, they don't have the exhibition like, Purdue or Georgetown like the men's team does. But at the same time, it's literally next episode, we'll be previewing Morehead State. So that's exciting. Of course, I see this is where I'm going to fault myself, guys. I do the graphics for my own show. I should have Steven do them because he knows what he's doing and I don't. It says preseason polls and blue-white preview like I did last time. I messed up. I forgot to change that. We're not talking about a blue-white preview because that's already happened. But we are going to talk about this upcoming season. But we're going to start with some newsy things at first. Tiani Key and Clara Streck. So the coaches' polls have all started to come out. Both of those two named preseason All-SEC second team, again, by the coaches. So it's one of those things where, Tiani Key was not on the media preseason poll. She is on the coaches poll. Again, I think Clara Streck is a first-team type of player. I think she's that good. But at the same time, it's just one of those things like I'm happy to see it. I'll tell you, within the facility, they think they have 4 potential All-SEC players. Now, because of how tough this conference is, this ain't the Big East, and it's like UConn gets every player in the all conference. Like, this is the SEC, so it's tougher to get your all conference players, right? But they genuinely think those two and Jordan Obi and Tony Morgan have the potential to be all SEC players. So it'll be interesting to me. Like, I think Tony Morgan can totally do it because of the system she's in. She was all ACC. Like, I think she can do it, and I wouldn't be surprised if she did. Of course, Jordan Obi was 3-time All Ivy League when she was at Penn. I like this energy. All right, this is Matt G. We just started the episode, but we're going undefeated. In the show. We don't need any, you don't need to see my predictions, nothing else. We're going, as Steven said, 80-0, because why not? But yeah, those two made preseason All-SEC coaches polls, so that's fun. Kentucky also picked to finish 8th in the SEC, or I'm sorry, 7th in the SEC in the coaches poll, so 1 spot higher. Coaches like Kentucky over Vanderbilt, as they should. And then, of course, in the USA Today coaches poll, Kentucky came in at number 20, whereas, in the media poll, AP poll, they came at number 24. Tied for 24, I should say, with Richmond. I roll Richmond. But yeah, I like Kentucky's spot. I feel like number 20. I still think Kentucky's a top 15 team, and maybe I'm biased, or maybe I just know this team better, but I like Kentucky sitting there at number 20, certainly better than number 24. I put this out on KSR Plus not that long ago. Earlier this week, I believe. Kentucky's got a secret scrimmage. Kentucky, as you see in the graphic, Power 4 team. If you subscribe to KSR Plus, go on KS Board. The team is specified. Almost smacked my mic. I think I did. The team is specified on KS Board. There are hey, look at Steven fixing the graphic for us there at the bottom. KSR's official women's basketball. Thank you, Steven. It's specified on there. I have to be careful when I talk about, because it's a secret scrimmage, right? Like, it's secret. Like, no one's really supposed to know what's happening, but these things get leaked all the time. Again, it's a Power 4 team, and it is a Power 4 team that Kentucky has played on a neutral court. Okay, so you can go back and look within the last 3 years. Okay, we'll just say that. So, again, go look the last few seasons, pick a Power 4 team Kentucky's played on a neutral court, and then be like, oh, okay, I bet it's this team. Or I bet it's this team. Take your pick, but Kentucky, I don't think that it's that. Well, I know it hasn't happened yet. I was told it was happening sometime this week. I actually believe that may be this weekend. We'll know whenever that happens. So, of course, next episode we'll talk about it some. But for now, just know that that's coming up. These are always really interesting too, because I remember last year specifically, and I referenced it a few times. I think Ole Miss beat Louisville by 20, and it's just that was an eye-popping score. You've seen a lot of those. I think Tennessee killed in North Carolina, if I'm right. They had a preseason exhibition. Like, I think Tennessee is going to be super good, and you never want to read into those secret scrimmages too much. But then again, like, at the same time, that you can kind of take away. Like, you know what I mean? Like, whenever Kentucky plays Purdue on the men's side, like, it's not going to mean nothing, right? Like, you're going to be able to kind of see where the program is. I remember last year, Kentucky scrimmaged Ohio State. They have for the last 2 years now. It's not Ohio State this time. Kentucky scrimmaged Ohio State last year, and from what I remember, I think they played it pretty much like a real game, except they wanted to kind of get everybody in, if I remember correctly, and I imagine that's kind of how it'll be this time around. Whereas, in which for Kentucky, everyone you have on your team outside of a couple people is your rotation. Like, it's not like, say, maybe on the men's side where you got 15 people on the roster, but it's only going to be a 10-player rotation. Like, we got 12 kids and it's going to be, we have 11 kids and it's going to be a 9-player rotation. You know what I mean? So it's not like that huge drop off of, okay, these guys just aren't getting minutes. But regardless, it'll just be interesting to see how Kentucky holds up. Power 4 team, and it's not like a stinky Power 4 team. It is a team that I believe is around, a team that could appear in the AP poll this season, right? I don't know if they're in it right now off the top of my head. I don't think they are. Maybe receiving votes, maybe somewhere in that area. But as for that team, they can be really good. They have been really good the last several years. So that'll be interesting to watch what that secret scrimmage outcome is. Before I forget, because I inevitably will, we're going to go ahead and shout out to our friends at Roback, because I don't want to get started on my predictions and then forget to give our good friends shout outs, right? Because that's what you got to do around here. Change the game with Roback, a proud Kentucky partner of KSR. Get the best fit and the best feel with their incredibly comfortable activewear, from polos and quarter zips to shorts and Delta performance pants. You will look good and feel good with Roback. Use promo code KSR for 20% off. That's a decent chunk. 20% off, especially in this economy. 20% off your first purchase at roback.com. But yeah, now we're into the bulk of the episode, which, by the way, Delta performance pants, again, what are those? I'm going to have to look that up. Like, what does that even mean? But from what I've heard from, like, Roush and everyone, like, they got good stuff at Roback. I've heard from, like, I remember I was talking to somebody, like, there's a comment here by Booker T that says Kentucky will lose in Columbia, South Carolina. Joke's on you, they play in Memorial. So Kentucky ain't losing in Columbia, South Carolina. If anything, they're winning here against South Carolina. But yeah, like, I've heard got to look at a lot of good stuff about Roback. But anyway, that's enough for the ad read. On to our predictions. This is going to be game by game. This is going to be, we're going to hit on basically everything you could want to hit on, right? Like, we're sitting here and trying to think about what's coming up. We're going to go through literally every single game. And then seeding, tournament finishes, all that good stuff. So I say we get into it, right? Why sit here and not do it, right? That's what we're all here for. We're 10 minutes deep. Let's go ahead and predict some women's basketball games. So we'll start with the non-conference. And as you can see, I've got the losses highlighted in red. I do think Maryland is the only game Kentucky loses in the non-conference. I think they handle really those first several games leading up to Louisville pretty handily, right? Like, I think even though Purdue is a power conference team, I think Kentucky wins that game fairly easily. At Buffalo, at Marshall are interesting. I just don't know if they're quite up to Kentucky's level. I think Kentucky can handle those teams for sure. Once you go to Louisville, that'll be interesting because Kenny Brooks has kind of had Jeff Walls and Louisville's number for a minute, but at the same time, it's Louisville, right? It's it's a very good team who's ranked higher than you currently at the moment in the AP poll. Um, I just don't know if they'll lose that game. I think they'll win and keep that streak going, or at least the Kenny Brooks streak, and keep our streak at two wins now. Of course, I think Kentucky loses to a really good Maryland team, right? Like Maryland, like Brenda Freeze does such a good job there. You just never know with them. They're ranked number 10 in the country. That's a neutral site game. You don't have the home court advantage. It's all the way down in Puerto Rico, so you don't really know what to make of that, except it's just on a neutral court. So it's literally just who's better one-on-one. Again, Maryland, I think, is going to be a really tough matchup. They had a really, really good offseason, got some nice acquisitions. They got a commitment. I mean, she won't be there this season, but the next year, Mimi Thero, Adu's sister, will be there. So that's interesting, of course. But yeah, I think when it comes to the non-conference, I think Kentucky only loses to Maryland. At Belmont is a really interesting one because they play Kentucky close. They just have a really good team anyway. Really good mid-major school. And, of course, you play at Miami in the SEC ACC Challenge. I don't know if Miami's that great. They got a really nice point guard who was freshman of the year in the Mountain West from the transfer portal, I believe. Gal Revive, she's really good. But other than that, I personally just don't know if Miami's up to standard. But I think Kentucky has a very real shot of going into SEC play undefeated. Because the Louisville game and the Maryland games to me are okay, if you win these two, you're going undefeated. It's just a matter of can you go 2-0, 1-1, or 0-2. Hopefully, obviously 2-0. I would expect 1-1 with that loss coming to Maryland all the way down in Puerto Rico. But there's definitely the possibility that Kentucky goes undefeated in non-conference play. And then you move on to the SEC games, right? As you see, I think Kentucky loses a few extra games in SEC play, which, I think we can all understand that. I think Kentucky starts off SEC play with a bang. You see it January 1st at number 5 LSU, right? When I look at that LSU team, I seriously think Kentucky will go down there and win that game. Last year, Kentucky was up 36-20 at home against LSU, and I don't really know what happened, how the game fell apart. I truly don't. Can you remember? I'm pretty sure it was 34-20, and then you all remember that play where Georgia Amore does the tip thing to herself and gets the layup in transition. That was the loudest Memorial was all year, maybe besides beating Louisville in overtime. But genuinely, I don't know, Tennessee got pretty loud too. But, I mean, I thought we might as well just win the national title at that point. I mean, you're up by 16 on LSU, and of course, we all know the tragic story where LSU comes back to win that game. But I just, I really like the matchup with LSU. They don't have a truly established big. Kate Koval is she's a very interesting player. I don't know if I can say she's very good yet because we didn't see her a ton. I don't feel like at Notre Dame. We didn't quite see her reach her potential at Notre Dame, so I don't know. Obviously, they have Flau'jae Johnson back, who's going to be one of the best players in the country. You have Malaysia Fulwale transferred from South Carolina. Zakiya Johnson. They have Grace Knox, a lot of really good freshmen, but I just don't know. LSU is definitely a better team than Kentucky, but I think Clara Strack could go for 30 points in that game. I just don't know what they're going to do about Clara Strack, man. And to me, I think that could be the reason why Kentucky really has a shot to go steal that one on the road. I think Kentucky handles their next 2 games against Missouri and then at Alabama. Missouri will be fun because Kelly Harper, who was at Tennessee, most recently, is now there, so that should be fun. I think Kentucky drops their first game of SEC play against Oklahoma at home. I know that was the Georgia Amore 43-point game on the road, and then, of course, you're losing to them in the SEC tournament. Oklahoma is just going to be really good. They have Reagan Beers, Peyton Verholst. I'm going to forget some names. Elias Chavez, who I think is going to be the best freshman in the country. I don't know if Kentucky can win that one. I don't know how. I think Kentucky and Oklahoma are very similar. I think those two teams are very alike. That Oklahoma game to me is the difference, most likely, maybe when they play Tennessee as well, sort of the difference in, okay, is Kentucky going to get a double bye in the SEC tournament again or not? And unfortunately, I just don't know about it this year. You won those 2 games last year. It's a pretty tall task to me to come back and do that again. And then, of course, I think Kentucky bounces back against Florida. Like I was just saying about Tennessee, I think they're a lot better this year. Kim Caldwell's crushing it as far as recruiting goes down there. So I think that's going to be a really tough one, especially on the road down there. That's going to be a packed house down there in Knoxville. And then Georgia, Arkansas, Vandy. I think Kentucky beats Vandy at home. And then, as you see later on February 22nd, I think we actually drop a game to Vandy on the road. I know. You are going to be like, Phoenix, weren't you just talking about Kentucky being better than Vandy? Well, I feel like they're going to drop one that they probably shouldn't. And to me, that will be a Vandy game on the road. You killed them on the road last year, but Vandy's still a good team. And I said that even when I said Kentucky is better than Vandy. Like, Vandy is still a very good team. To me, though, it's just a matter of, okay, you're not going to win every single game you should, because I think if you do that, then you go like, let's see, there's 30 games in the schedule. You probably go like 26-4. And that just seems really unlikely to me in just year 2. I think Kentucky loses to Texas on February 9th, especially with that gaming on the road. They still have Kyla Oldacre. She was the thorn in the side last year down there in the paint. Madison Booker and Rory Harmon are back. That Texas, they could be it's hard to say sleeper for the national title when they're a number 4 team in the country, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if they won it all. I think you beat Texas A&M, get your revenge there. I do not think Kentucky can get the revenge against Ole Miss. They were one of the winners of the transfer portal. Of course, their big signing was Cody McMahon from Ohio State, but I think Ole Miss is just going to be super good. Like I said, I think you drop that game at Vandy, beat Auburn, and I really hate, because it was like this last year too, and I wonder if it's going to be a recurring theme, that South Carolina game being the last game of the regular season. I hate that that's the way it is, because you want to go into the SEC tournament on a high note, right? And I think even last year you kind of saw where, you lose to South Carolina and you're like, crap. And then you go to Greenville and then you lose to Oklahoma, a team you'd already beat, right? I just hate that game's last in the regular season, but I guess you got to play them sometime. And of course, it's just hard for me to pick Kentucky over South Carolina at this moment in time. Maybe a couple of years down the road when Kenny Brooks really's got things rolling. For me, it's just hard to say that right now. But, I mean, I think Kentucky is going to be a better team than they were last year, right? Like, I think you compare 24-25 to 25-26. I think this year's team beats last year's team by 10 points, right? If you could somehow get those to play each other, I think this team beats last year's team by 10 points. But I think the SEC got significantly better as a whole, which is crazy because it's already like the best conference in the country. It's also, I like how Matt G says the Beers girl is a load. She is a load, and it says Built Liquor Dad. I don't know who Reagan Beers' dad is. I'm going to look that up right now on the podcast. Reagan Beers' dad that's not what I'm looking for. Or is it? Police sergeant for the city of Lakewood, Colorado? Is that right? Is Wikipedia right? I mean, okay. I don't know. I expected it to be someone famous, I guess. They kept showing him during the games. Okay, that makes sense because obviously I wouldn't know that because I'm usually there. I did watch the Oklahoma game on the road on TV though, so I guess I should have known that. But I guess if they did it on the SEC tournament, I would not know because I was actually there. Regardless, I don't know why I expected Reagan Beer's dad to be some famous, like I don't know, some ex NFL linebacker or D lineman or something. The police sergeant kind of threw me off, but hey, I can see it, right? Because I imagine police sergeants are big and strong. I don't know, but Reagan Beers, I mean, she's tough. As much as griping and complaining I do about how Clara Strack should be ranked over her, I kind of get it when it comes to those like preseason polls. But I'm gonna go completely off a limb here and forget where I'm at. But yeah, like Reagan Beers is really good. That Oklahoma team, that is a true sleeper for the national title, right? Like especially with Aaliyah Chavez, I think they can be really, really dang good. I can't pronounce their coach's name for the life of me. I just haven't heard it said that many times, but I think she's a really good coach. So they should be an interesting watch. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and click on the official predictions lined up graphic, right? Of course, there's the schedule. Shout out to that graphic I made. That's sweet, right? Look at that on the left. That's beautiful. Anyway, so there's the predictions. After all the games I just went through, I think Kentucky finishes the regular season 23-7 and 10-6 in the SEC. So a better overall record, but one game worse as far as the SEC record goes. Again, I just think the SEC got significantly better in women's basketball. I feel like in men's basketball, the SEC really kind of dropped off. Other than I think Arkansas got better. Florida's just as good, basically. But other than that, Kentucky definitely got better. But I feel like on the men's side, SEC kind of dropped off, whereas on the women's side, I feel like they got a lot better somehow. I think Kentucky finishes 6th in the SEC. If you held a gun to my head and said, Phoenix, pick the SEC right now, I'm taking South Carolina 1, Texas 2, LSU 3, Oklahoma 4, Tennessee 5, Kentucky 6, and who cares after that, right? I just feel like those teams are, a bit more talented than Kentucky. Even though I think the Kentucky and Tennessee dynamic's interesting because I'd almost put Kentucky 5th, but to me, I sit and think about like the style of plays really mesh in Kentucky's favor. I think like last year you really saw that where we blew out Tennessee, and it's not like because Tennessee's bad; it's just because we were able to expose their style of play. I mean, Kenny Brooks is already 2-0 against Kim Caldwell, and neither of those games were close. I think for whatever reason, her style of play, that hockey style sub in and out, fast. Well, that really benefits Kentucky and the teams that Kenny Brooks has had. So, excuse me, I don't know how Tennessee. I think we lose to Tennessee just mainly because of the environment and everything like that. Some of the more outside of the X's and O's, if you will. But at the same time, I do think like Kentucky. I think on a neutral court, Kentucky may beat Tennessee this year. I'm not saying they're better. Again, I just think the style of plays mesh. A lot of teams can't handle the Tennessee style of play. And I think you'll see that this season. I just think Kentucky may be able to, even though I do think they lose that game on the road. Just going back to the predictions here. Like I said, I think Kentucky finishes 6th in the SEC. I think Kentucky wins a game in the SEC tournament. I think they win a game in the quarterfinals, and then they drop whoever they play, whatever top 4 seed they play in the semifinals. I just don't know if Kentucky's, I don't know if they're going to play on Sunday just yet. I think we're close. I think you could really, we've heard Kenny Brooks and Kentucky say SEC champs, right? Like that's a big thing they're saying. I just don't know if it's happening this year. I think it'll definitely happen, sometime in Kenny Brooks' tenure at Kentucky. I just don't know if it's happening yet. With that 23-7 record, of course, counting the SEC tournament, 24-8. I think Kentucky, gets up to a 3 seed. I think without a doubt, I think this year for Kentucky, even though the SEC is super tough and everything, considering what you did in year 1, I would be pretty disappointed if Kentucky didn't host again this year. I think hosting is something you need to make a regular thing. Of course, and if you don't know, to host in the the NCAA tournament women's basketball, he's got to be one of the top 16 seeds, right? Oh, a 1, 2, or 3, or a 4. Host the first 2 rounds anyway, that is, and then Sweet 16 is when it all goes to neutral courts. But to me, what they did last year was really special, right? I mean, after not making the tournament and after since 22 and after being so bad, it was pretty special to host in year 1. Well, I think Kenny Brooks has kind of set a bar for himself, and he says this, like he says, we set our own standard. I remember people are like, "Hey, man, 12 games haven't won really. What's it like coming in here?" And he's like, "I don't care. We're going to set our own standard. Like, I won 31 games at Virginia Tech, and so I think to kind of that point, like Kenny set a standard for himself where it's okay. Let's see how you can build off year 1, how you can keep continuing to improve. I know for me, and again, this may just be me, right? May not even be anyone else, but I know for me, it's okay. You were able to host in year 1. I think this team's even better. I think you need to be able to host in year 2, year 3, year 4. Like, I think you need to make that a regular sort of thing. Like, I don't want to compare it to like UConn making the Final Four, but like you just need to make hosting not an expectation. Like, I'm not saying it's like host or bust. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying I would feel like, man, we didn't do quite as good as we could have if you didn't host. Right. And of course, I just think Kentucky would be a seed line better heading into the season. I do think Kentucky goes all the way to the Elite Eight, the furthest that they've ever been in school history. I think they go to their 5th Elite Eight. Is that right? Yes, their 5th Elite Eight. Because I believe we went to 1 in 1982, and then Matthew Mitchell took them to 3 in 4 years. So yeah, I think Kentucky gets to their 5th Elite Eight. I don't know who they lose to. I think we're knocking on the door of a Final Four starting this year. I just don't think it happens quite this season. And then I've got a few hot takes or, just bolder predictions, if you will, for, some player-specific things. I think Clara Strack wins the SEC Player of the Year again, or SEC Defensive Player of the Year again, excuse me. Like, she won it last year, so why can't she do it again this year? I mean, that's really the only. I mean, I didn't do any like deep dive into the rest of the conference. I didn't do any crazy research. I mean, she won SEC Defensive Player of the Year as a sophomore. Why can't she do it again this year? I don't know of any transfers that came into the SEC that are, Victor Wembanyama or Dikembe Mutombo. You know what I mean? So I think Clara Strack can be SEC Defensive Player again this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if she does it again her senior year. And I don't know how many times it's happened, but I'd be willing to bet she may be the first player ever to win SEC Defensive Player of the Year 3 years. You know what I mean? I don't know, but I could see it, right? So for me, that prediction, it's just like, again, no crazy research, no crazy thought behind it. She did it last year, so why not do it again this year, right? I think that one's pretty simple. I think Tony Morgan is going to Georgia Amore last season reset the single season assist record here at Kentucky. I believe the number for Georgia was 213. I'm going to pull that up real quick as I'm talking about it. Georgia had a really special year last year, passing the rock, and you kind of knew it was going to be something special, right? Like you just watched Georgia Amore. Yes, it's 213. You watch Georgia Amore play, and she's like the ultimate facilitator, a point guard. Even better than she is scoring. But man, to me, just watching Georgia Amore play, she was really special. But I think Tony Morgan, not saying she's more special than Georgia Amore, because Georgia Amore is truly one of a kind, right? One of the greatest to ever do it. But do I think the way she is in Kentucky's system, the way the roster is constructed around her, specifically the shooters, the bench pieces you have now, like I think Tony Morgan can push that assist record. Georgia Amore last season averaged 6.9 assists per game. I wouldn't be surprised if Tony Morgan averages 7.1, 7.2. I'm not saying she's going to shatter the assist record at all, but I could see, The record's 213. I could see her finishing the year with like 219, 220, 221, right? I think Tony Morgan can have a really special year at Kentucky, and I think she could kind of rewrite herself in the history books, even in just one season here. I'm going to pull it up right now as I'm saying it. But Tony Morgan, for her career, last year was her highest assists per game at 5.6, which obviously is a step down from 6.9. Again, I just think with the pieces she has around her, even if her scoring is down a little bit from what it normally is, I think Tony Morgan's assist numbers could definitely shoot up for sure. I think Asia Boone is going to be one of the best three-point shooters in the country. I have top 10 specifically in the country in three-point percentage. I've just heard all offseason long how Asia Boone is this elite shooter. I've kind of seen it for myself. We didn't really get a glimpse of it at either the blue-white. Well, actually, no, we didn't get a great glimpse of the blue-white game. We absolutely saw it at Madness where she hit like 12 threes in a row. But Asia Boone can really shoot the rock. I've seen it in person. Next Tuesday, actually for the media, there is an open practice in which I'm hoping to see more of Asia Boone nailing threes. But she looks amazing to shoot in the rock. Like purest shot I've ever seen. Just absolutely great stuff from her. Like she's shot 38% last year from three at Liberty. I think she could really, like, on maybe less attempts per game. Maybe, I don't know, maybe around the same. I think she can up it to close to the mid 40s. I really can. Because I just don't see why she can't, right? Like she is a tremendous shooter, and especially with the Dom Perova injury, she may slide into that two-guard role, kind of like that Deja Lawrence role almost again, her more natural role where she's like, just firing away, right? So I think it'll be real interesting to see on that front. And, of course, my last real hot take-ish bold prediction, I think Kaylin Carroll is going to be an all-SEC freshman. I do not know, other than like the LSU girls, Grace Knox, I'm missing one. Devon Borage, maybe? I don't even know how you say her name. And then Zakiya. I know the LSU girls have really good freshmen. I got McCure. Like South Carolina, they have a good one. But I think Kaylin Carroll's going to cement herself in that group. I really do. I've heard, especially in the last couple weeks, I've heard a lot of really, really good stuff on Kaylin Carroll. I've heard her shot looks better. She's more confident, better defense. Like literally everything you could want. It sounds like Kaylin Carroll's getting better. Now, I'm not saying she's going to be an instant starter. I'm not even saying she's going to be the sixth man on this team. But what I am saying is Kaylin Carroll, I think, is going to contribute a decent amount in the rotation. Like I think she's going to be a part of that. And we saw it at the blue-white game when they scrimmaged the men's practice players. I think she'll be a part of sort of that second unit that kind of comes in alongside Asia Boone and Josie Gilvin and Lexi Blue, which is just the rest of the rotation. But, I think she can come in and provide quality minutes, right? I don't know how much of a concern there even is as far as her offense because of how gifted she is on that end of the floor. Again, it's just as a freshman, can she defend against SEC players? Can she defend against, some of the best players in the country, right? Like if she gets matched up against, let's say, Tessa Johnson from South Carolina or a Flau'jae Johnson or, someone of that caliber, is she going to look lost? Or can she kind of hold her own, right? I think that's where we'll see where Kaylin Carroll can either become, maybe closer toward the end of the rotation, or if she plays really well, might start to push her way to be a sixth man. You know what I mean? But I personally have that confidence in Kaylin Carroll where it's like, all right, you, ma'am, I think you're going to be really good. Especially, I think she's going to be really good down the line anyway. But in year one, I think she can be pretty good enough to be SEC, all SEC freshman. That is not regular all SEC. I'm not saying that. But all SEC freshman, I think she can do it. So that's the predictions and hot takes, bold predictions, whatever you want to call them. 23-7. 3 seed in the tournament. I think Kentucky goes to the Elite Eight. I think they go to the furthest they've ever been. Their 5th Elite Eight in school history. I think Kentucky is going to be knocking on the door of their first ever Final Four berth. Kenny Brooks second. I think starting in 26-27, when you get Madden Greenway here, Emily McDonald, Savvy Swords, those 3 freshmen, senior Clara Strack, senior Asia Boone, and then you have a redshirt sophomore, Dom Perova, who she'll still be a redshirt sophomore if I'm right. You'll bring in somebody from the portal that we don't even know yet. Like, I think this is going to be a really fun year, but to me, I think it's almost setting up. Not that it's a waste of a year at all, because that's not at all what I'm saying. Again, I think Kentucky, I think this team truly has Final Four potential, right? Which would be the greatest year in the history of the program. And you could argue it could be one of the greatest years in the history of the program if they make it to an Elite Eight. But I think this year is truly setting up a 4 to 5 year run under Kenny Brooks where you have a real shot at winning a national title. You have a real shot at the first ever Final Four berth here. And again, getting over that hump, and finally Kentucky wins a national title. I think it can happen. But it's baby steps, right? It's baby steps. They say SEC champs will eventually, they're going to start saying NCAA champs. It's just baby steps to get there. I wasn't expecting Kenny Brooks to win a national title in year 1. I'm not quite expecting it in year 2. Year 3, we'll see. Year 4, we'll see. Year 5, we'll see, right? I'm just not expecting it yet, but I do think Kentucky gets to an Elite Eight. Shout out to our man, Terry Willis, as Josie Gilvin impressed me last year and at Blue Madness. She's a hustler. Yeah, I like Josie a lot. Of course, we watched her against WKU when we played them. She looked really good in that game. I thought, I thought she looked really good, but it really amazed me. Not amazed me because she's a senior, but in the blue-white game and at Madness, really, like, she just looked so poised. Again, she didn't look nervous. And I feel like you should expect that out of a senior. But for me, it was really refreshing to see. And of course, well, there's an ironic part to this, but she's a Kentucky kid. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to comment a whole lot more on the Kentucky kid front, but like, it's just nice to see her here doing well. But Josie Gilvin, she's definitely going to be a valuable contributor for this team for sure. Again, I think she's going to be your seventh man on the rotation, I think is fair to say, which, considering she was kind of the show at WKU, I feel like that's pretty fair, making that jump from WKU to Kentucky in the SEC. Like, she's not going to be shoved at the end of the bench or anything. Like, Josie Gilvin is going to play very valuable, meaningful minutes. But yeah, just back to the predictions one final time. 23-7, 6th in the SEC. I think they go to Saturday in the SEC tournament. I really do hope and pray they win at least one game there. So when I'm there, I'm not sad the entire weekend. I'll just be sad for like a day. NCAA tournament seed, I think they'll be a 3 seed. I think they get to the Elite Eight. And, of course, for the more player-specific things, I think Clara Strack wins another SEC Defensive Player of the Year. I think Tony Morgan, just after Georgia Amore set the school record, for assists in the season, I think Tony Morgan resets it. I think Asia Boone will be one of the best three-point shooters in the country, and I think Kaylin Carroll will surprise us and be one of the better freshmen in the SEC. So 23-7 again is my prediction for the regular season record. Greg, I'm just like you, man. I'm excited. Listen, I have shout out to Skim Milky on Twitter. If you don't know who I'm talking about, that is, if you know who Trilly Donovan is on the men's side, that is, Trilly Donovan is like, I don't even know what you say, anonymous person on Twitter with basketball scoop. He's got like a Discord and everything. I'm not on there, but I know it exists. and Skim is like the women's basketball version of Trilly, right? I want to shout out that account for one reason specifically. There is not a one shining moment for the women's basketball side of things. And that sucks because I'll freely admit, right? Because I talk about women's basketball, it's my job, but I love UK men's basketball too, obviously. I've listened to One Shining Moment, specifically the 2012 version, more times than I'd like to admit, even in the last week. Like, not just in general. Like, not when it's March and I'm feeling all like, woo, March Madness. Like, no. Even in the last week, I have turned on 2012 One Shining Moment a little too much. But I don't think there is too much because basketball season's here. But my shout out to the Skim relating to that was he made a women's basketball version of One Shining Moment. But instead of using that song, it's Whitney Houston's I Want to Dance with Somebody. The video is freaking awesome. And it's so well put together. It's so cool. And again, I hope they make that like an official thing. Like the Skim Milky One Shining Moment for women's basketball. I hope they make that a thing because again, I want to dance with somebody, the big dance, right? Like you get it. Really cool video. I'll retweet that tonight when we get off the podcast. I'll do that as soon as we get off here. And I'll be like, this is what I was talking about on the podcast. Yeah, it's such a cool video. And that's one that, it's got me pumped up for the season. Again, I'm like you, Terry. I'm like you, Matt. I'm like you. Well, I say Matt. Matt, we got Matt, Greg, Terry. We got a lot of names in here. We got a lot of people listening. Appreciate you all. But yeah, I feel like basketball season cannot be here soon enough. Thank goodness we have Purdue tomorrow. I cannot wait for November 3rd, November 4th. I can't wait for all of those things. But we're going to call this one an episode. We squeezed out 42-ish, 40. It's going to be like 45 by the time I finally shut up. But we squeezed out an episode. And next episode, it's actually preview time. Like we will actually be talking about Morehead State and Ashton Feldhaus and how she's Darren Feldhaus's niece. And we're going to go into all that crap. I'm going to do a deep dive on Morehead State's roster because that's what we do around here. I'm so freaking excited for Kentucky women's basketball. I know you all are too. Thank you all so much again for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe. As you see, let's see if I can do this right down there. We are at 51.7K subscribers. Get us to 52K, get us to 55K, get us to 60K. And then one day, let's really surprise Steven and get us to like, I don't know, 1 million. And we'll get him like the YouTube plaque or something. You know what I mean? Again, like, comment, subscribe, not just for more women's basketball stuff, but men's basketball, football, all those kinds of things. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Means a lot to me, means a lot to Steven, means a lot to all of us. Again, I'll shut up. We'll get out of here. Again, thank you all so much. We will see you guys next time. Thank you so much again.